Harvey Robbins never needed to shout or show off to be remembered. From the first moment he stepped onto American Bandstand, he carried himself with a cheerful ease that made everyone around him feel welcome. His constant smile became his signature, a signal that this was a boy who danced not just for himself, but for the joy of the crowd. Viewers at home saw it instantly. Letters arrived begging for more Harvey because his presence lit up the screen. Among his friends, Harvey was known as the dancing machine, but what set him apart was more than stamina. Peggy Leonard, Carole Scaldeferri, Marianne Cuff, Lou Solino, and Frank Levins all seemed to shine brighter in his company. He was the kind of dancer who made others look good because his warmth was impossible to ignore. But before he became that smiling face beloved by millions, what shaped Harvey Robbins in his earliest years? Harvey Robbins was born on August 3rd in the mid-1940s, just as Philadelphia was entering a new era of music and youth culture. The city's neighborhoods were alive with the sound of jukeboxes, corner gatherings, and the hum of radios filling row houses. It was in this environment that Harvey's cheerful personality began to take shape, a warmth and openness that friends would later describe as his defining qualities. Even before the cameras of American Bandstand, Harvey was known among those around him as someone who carried light into every room. His smile came easily, and so did his enthusiasm for rhythm. Like so many teenagers of that generation, he was drawn to the beat of early rock and roll, practicing dance steps at home, at school functions, or at local halls where music brought people together. What set Harvey apart was not ambition, but inclusion. He danced to share joy, not to claim attention. Family and community life in Philadelphia reinforced these traits. The values of togetherness and friendliness that were common in post-war households resonated strongly with him. Those who grew close to Harvey often remembered how natural it felt to be in his company. He made others comfortable, no matter the setting. This spirit, born in the ordinary rhythms of daily life, would soon prepare him for something extraordinary. In the late 1950s, as television was becoming the new hearth of the American home, a program opened its doors to local teens. For Harvey, the stage of Studio B was waiting. But how did this boy with an ever-present smile move from neighborhood sidewalks to the nation's living rooms? For Harvey Robbins, the journey from neighborhood dances to national television began with a simple invitation. Friends whispered about a program called American Bandstand, filmed right in Philadelphia, where ordinary teens could step onto a dance floor and appear in living rooms across the country. Harvey, with his ever-present smile and natural rhythm, seemed destined to belong there. Encouraged by companions, he made his way to the studio doors on 46th and Market, where lines of teenagers stretched down the block, each waiting for their turn in front of the cameras. The first impression was unforgettable. Music spilling into the street, laughter echoing from the waiting crowd, and the hum of anticipation as names were checked at the entrance. For Harvey, it was more than excitement. It was a chance to bring the joy he carried at home to a stage that felt much larger. Inside Studio B, the glare of lights and the sight of television cameras were overwhelming at first. Yet when the music began, Harvey moved with the same ease that had always defined him, his smile cutting through the nerves. That first dance was a turning point. The floor was crowded, the air thick with energy, but Harvey's presence stood out. He wasn't performing to impress, he was simply himself, warm, approachable, and full of rhythm. Viewers watching at home saw something they recognized, the boy next door who could light up a room. Soon, fan mail began to arrive, and producers noticed the requests for more appearances. Harvey had crossed a threshold few teenagers could imagine. No longer just a boy from Philadelphia, he was now part of a televised generation, his face and movements woven into the fabric of afternoon routines across America. The question then became, once he found his place under the studio lights, how brightly would Harvey Robbins shine at the height of Bandstand's fame? When Harvey Robbins settled into life as a regular on American Bandstand, he quickly became one of the most recognizable faces on the floor. Unlike dancers who chased the spotlight with dramatic moves, Harvey's gift was subtler but no less powerful. He brought an infectious energy that made every performance feel alive. The producers noticed, the audience at home noticed, and soon letters flooded the station. "More Harvey!" became a refrain from devoted fans like Susie Hendricks, who felt his cheerful presence was as essential to the show as the music itself. Harvey's style wasn't about flash, it was about connection. He danced with Peggy Leonard, Marianne Cuff, and most often Carole Scaldeferri, and with each partner, he carried the same warmth. On screen, he was nicknamed the Dancing Machine, not just for stamina, but for his consistency, always smiling, always steady. Fellow regulars like Solino and Frank Levins often appeared beside him, proof of the friendships that formed in the pressure of television lights. What made Harvey unforgettable was how he represented the ideal of bandstand, a teenager who could be both ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. Across America, kids saw him and thought, he could be my friend, my classmate, my neighbor. That relatability, combined with his ever-present joy, turned him into a quiet star of the show. Beyond the screen, Harvey's popularity grew through fan clubs, magazine mentions, and postcards exchanged with admirers. He wasn't just a dancer on television, he was someone teens across the nation felt they knew. To them, Harvey Robbins embodied the golden afternoons of youth, the sense that happiness was just one song away. But as every dancer on Bandstand discovered, fame brought its own pressures. How long could Harvey keep shining under the cameras, and what would happen when the lights inevitably dimmed? Harvey Robbins never danced alone for long. On American Bandstand, his cheerful presence made him a natural partner, and viewers quickly noticed the easy chemistry he shared with others. Among his most frequent companions was Carole Scaldeferri, a dancer whose elegance matched perfectly with Harvey's warmth. Together, they created a picture that audiences adored. Carole's grace balanced by Harvey's energy, their smiles lighting up the screen in unison. With Peggy Leonard and Marianne Cuff, he carried the same effortless charm, proving that every partner felt at ease in his company. Behind the cameras, Harvey's friendship stretched even further. Solino and Frank Levins were often by his side, whether on the dance floor or outside the studio. Photos show them laughing together, proof that the bonds of Bandstand extended beyond rehearsals and broadcasts. For Harvey, these connections were just as important as the fame, anchoring him in the fast-changing world of teenage celebrity. The show, however, carried its own quiet pressures. Bandstand was built on image, and dancers were expected to uphold rules of appearance and conduct. Harvey's constant smile and approachable demeanor made it look effortless, but he too faced the same competition for camera time and the unspoken rivalries between groups of regulars. Even so, his reputation for being friendly to everyone made him stand apart. He wasn't remembered for feuds, but for lifting others up. Fans adored the partnerships they saw on screen, often imagining romances or lifelong connections. In truth, Harvey's gift was making every dance seem genuine, as if the music itself bound him to his partner. That sincerity turned ordinary performances into lasting memories. Still, as the years passed and new faces joined the show, the rhythm of Bandstand changed. For Harvey Robbins, the question was no longer just how brightly he could shine, but how long he could hold on to that place at the center of so many hearts. Like every regular on American Bandstand, Harvey Robbins eventually faced the moment when the music of the show could not be his entire life. As the late 1950s gave way to the 1960s, school, work, and the demands of growing older pulled many dancers away from the studio. For Harvey, too, there came a time when afternoons once filled with cameras and records had to give way to responsibilities beyond the program. The bandstand community was constantly evolving. New dancers stepped in, eager for their chance, and the competition for screen time quietly intensified. Harvey's strength had always been his friendliness and consistency, not an aggressive chase for attention. That same humility, which made him beloved, also meant he could step back gracefully when life called him elsewhere. Friends who knew him remembered that he remained the same cheerful presence even as his time on television faded. There was no dramatic farewell, no public announcement, only the quiet reality that, like so many of his peers, Harvey slipped naturally into the next stage of life. For fans at home who had written more Harveys in their letters, his absence may have seemed sudden. For Harvey, it was likely just the next step in a rhythm that had always been bigger than the cameras. The show gave him memories, friendships, and recognition that would never leave him. But away from the spotlight, Harvey had to build a life that few would ever see. So what path did Harvey Robbins follow once the music faded and the studio doors closed behind him? When Harvey Robbins stepped away from the bright lights of American Bandstand, he did not disappear from the lives of those who knew him. Instead, he remained a cherished friend within the bandstand circle, often appearing alongside familiar faces like Peggy Leonard, Frank Brancaccio, Carole Scaldeferri, and Frank Levins. In photos from the 1980s, Harvey looked vibrant, his hair longer, his style transformed with the times, but the same smile that had once charmed television audiences was still present. To those who danced with him, he was not just a memory from the past, but a companion who stayed connected. Harvey's warmth found a new stage in reunion events, where former regulars gathered to relive the afternoons that once defined a generation. At RJ's After Dark, a show hosted by fellow bandstand alum Ron Joseph, Harvey joined Carole Scaldeferri, proving that his love for music and friendship endured long after the daily broadcasts ended. Perhaps the most surprising image was from the 23rd reunion, where Harvey appeared with long hair and a beard, described playfully by friends as a hippie. Phew. It was a startling contrast to the clean-cut teenager America had once watched, but it also showed his willingness to evolve while keeping his spirit intact. Behind the laughter and camaraderie, however, there was a poignancy. In July of 1988, Harvey passed away in his early 40s, far too young for someone remembered as so full of life. The shock rippled through those who loved him, leaving an emptiness where joy had once been constant. Yet, even in grief, friends and fans recalled the same thing: Harvey's gift for making others feel welcome, for turning a simple dance into a shared memory. And so the question lingers: what is it about Harvey Robbins that continues to resonate decades later, making his legacy as enduring as the music he once danced to? Harvey Robbins may have left this world far too soon, but the memory he created has proven lasting. He was remembered as the cheerful regular with the constant smile, a boy who turned every dance into a moment of light. His energy, his warmth, and his ability to make friends shine beside him gave him a place not only on American Bandstand, but in the hearts of those who watched and danced with him. To speak of Harvey is to recall the spirit of youth itself, uncomplicated joy, friendship, and the thrill of music filling the air. Even now, when fans look back at old photographs or reunion snapshots, his face carries the same effect. It feels like being welcomed back into a room filled with music and laughter. Were you one of those who saw Harvey Robbins step onto the screen with that unforgettable smile? What memory of him still lingers in your heart?